Hello and welcome back to Tap Into the Truth. We're here with Obama's third term, part 2, as we continue to discuss the current attack on our Constitution at almost every level from the so-called progressives. Now, the reason we're discussing this today is because some of you may have heard, it's certainly been all over Twitter and Facebook for the last 48 hours or so, but not much talk about it on the mainstream media. What you may have heard is that Representative Jose Serrano, a Democrat from New York, has introduced a bill, he did this Friday, to repeal the 22nd Amendment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are a little bit rusty on your constitutional studies from whatever the last level of education you might have acquired, that is the amendment that actually puts term limits on the office of president. That is the only thing that the 22nd Amendment does. You know, a lot of other amendments in the Bill of Rights, a lot of additional amendments to the Constitution that have been made, deal with several related topics, and then a few things here and there that may not be quite so obviously related, and certainly have plenty of people that try and twist the meanings into something that really isn't related. As we looked at the 14th Amendment in the first part of this broadcast, we did in fact make the connection of where the 14th Amendment actually did step up and have some dealings with public debt. It's because it was one of the Reconstructionist amendments. This was a series of amendments that were passed and ratified at a point in time when this country was trying to pull itself back together shortly after the Civil War. The 14th Amendment deals with what defines a citizenship. It established due process and equal protection under the law, all important precepts. It stated that Congress cannot ignore the public debt. But the reason for doing so was so that it could, quite frankly, tell France and England to go suck it, because they weren't going to pay back the loans that were given to the Confederacy. That was the only reason that it was mentioned at all. Again, this was moving forward, trying to force the previous Confederate states back into the Union and back under full Union control, so to speak. We even discussed how the state governments were dissolved by the federal government, another constitutionally questionable action, with military governments installed in its place because they refused to vote for several of these Reconstructionist amendments. The military governments then did pass them, and what do you know, the next thing you know, we have new amendments with the proper 2/3 majority. The reason that we're talking about the very fact that at this point in time a representative from the fine state of New York would be interested in trying to repeal the 22nd Amendment. See, this is the thing where we enter into conspiracy theory land. So welcome to Conspiracy Theory Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the part where we have to start looking between the lines and try and figure out what it is that's being built upon little by little, step by step. As we see more of the Constitution falling under attack, we have to question why. There are people who've had legitimate arguments in regards to whether or not term limits are necessary, because the ultimate term limit is the vote. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've seen from this most recent presidential election that we can no longer count on those who are responsible for making sure that the elections are run properly and fairly to do that job. There were elections that were certified in battleground states that could have changed the tide of the election, that certified results with the occupier receiving more than 100% of the eligible voting base. How on earth can anyone get 104% of the total number of people eligible to vote in your district and still not even have gotten all of the votes for the district? How is it that there could be districts anywhere where he actually did receive 100%? These are questions you have to ask yourself, and if you honestly believe that there's nothing you can do about it, well, then there won't be. But that's been the problem. We have set back as a people way too long, just letting these people do whatever they want. Now they think they can do it with immunity. They don't think anyone's going to challenge these things. And why not? Why not pass a law that's unconstitutional? Why not put new bans and restrictions on gun ownership? Because, as these so-called progressives have been doing masterfully over the last couple of months, they've been trying to change the public perception of what these mean, nasty, evil gun owners do and who they are. They've demonized and monsterized these people at every turn. Why? Because they exercise their constitutionally protected right to own firearms. When the public at large comes to fear these evil people, then it's okay to take their rights from them, isn't it? Let's criminalize them. Let's put them in jail. And why not pass a law that's unconstitutional? Because the Supreme Court doesn't have to make that determination until someone challenges that law. In the current climate, how long would it be till they did? I mean, this is all the more reason why I hope everyone got out and participated in Hobby Lobby Appreciation Day yesterday, because, for crying out loud, we need more companies willing to stand up and challenge these people for trying to do things that not only are unconstitutional, but are just plain wrong. The federal government has no business nor any right in telling any employer that they have to pay for contraceptives, which are already cheap and readily available all throughout this country, or to pay for abortions. If you are a company that's based and ran on biblical principles, which Hobby Lobby is, they put people first. They don't stay open late like so many other companies that are only trying to make a profit. They don't open for certain family-oriented holidays, even though these are chief among those best-selling days. They're not open on Sundays, much like Chick-fil-A. Why? Because they want their employees to have time with their families. They want them to spend that time. Now, whether they do or not, that's on the employee. But the fact that the business is run based on the principle is what has targeted them. Well, they've stood up and said that they're not going to. They're willing to go to court to fight it, and they're willing to pay fines that may put them out of business rather than give in to the mandate, rather than be told from some pencil pusher in D.C. whose only real interest is to try and further secularize our nation. They're willing to risk everything because they put people first and they put God first. God before government and people before profit. The same thing can be said for Chick-fil-A. The same thing can be said for a few other companies that you don't know their names yet, but they will, I hope, be standing up soon too, alongside these other two companies, and they will be standing up regardless of which side of the argument you're on. They're still standing up for you, Mr. and Mrs. America. They're standing up for the same people that Dianne Feinstein has said she's coming to disarm you. She didn't say that with the current legislation. Oh no, this is for the children. It was back in 85 when she said she was coming to disarm you. She said it on 60 Minutes. That footage can still be found. Feel free to look it up if you don't believe me. In fact, one of the things with Tap Into the Truth is I constantly challenge you to use your brain. That also means go do your own research. See if you can prove me wrong. I dare you, because two things will happen. Number one, you'll find out occasionally I might get something a little bit off, or I might have come across erroneous information from a source. So you might find out something. But either way, you're going to end up knowing more about the topic yourself, and you're going to be able to intelligently discuss the topic by doing your own research. But please, please, don't just take a single source of information. And try to stay away from partisan sources. That way you'll know you're getting the real deal. The First and Second Amendments are being literally shredded and have been since day one of the occupiers' first term in office. Now they're going after multiples. Well, why would we want to get rid of the 22nd Amendment? Why would we want to do away with term limits on the office of the president? Well, you'd want to do that now so that, number one, if there is a lot of political backlash, there's plenty of time between now and the next election for the general public to forget that Representative Serrano even introduced the bill in the first place. Also, so that if there isn't a lot of pushback, that it might actually be passed in time for the next presidential election. Because after all, the campaigner-in-chief, the occupier, he's way better at campaigning than he certainly is at any kind of actual government. His ability to govern is limited to choosing the best angle for approaching the green, or which club to use. The man doesn't know much about free market capitalism, but he sure can choose a pretty good NCAA basketball bracket. Why not get all this stuff out of the way now, so by the time March Madness rolls around, he doesn't have to worry about pesky little things like, I don't know, being the chief executive? A job he claims to have wanted, a job he's campaigned for twice, a job that he, as far as I can tell, didn't actually win this last time, but nobody's doing anything about it, so he's officially being recognized as the president again. He's officially into his second term, and he's not satisfied with it. Neither are the people who put him there. Why? Because nobody else in the history of this country has ever gotten away with doing as much damage to the Constitution as this man has. This man says, point blank, in regards to using the 14th Amendment as a means to just do whatever he wants to with the debt ceiling, the official press release that has come from Jay Carney is, this administration does not believe that the 14th Amendment gives the president the power to ignore the debt ceiling. Period. But if you'll recall last year, through executive order, he basically signed into law, although that's not really what happened. Laws can only come from the Congress. Through executive order, he mandated the DREAM Act into existence. Something that could not get through Congress because it was too politically charged in regards to rewards for illegal